And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Richard Serrett will be on tomorrow night for you, and I'll be back on Sunday with emerging artists and some great guests, and then we'll get your week rolling in here on Coast to Coast. Let's go to the phones. First-time caller Stan in South Dakota. Hey, Stan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, I'm not a first-time caller, but I pushed the button.
Okay. We'll let you through. We'll let you through on this one.
Yeah, no, thanks for I enjoyed the Archbishop, and I've had a lot of experience in that area, and he was right on. He was not trying to impress, or those kind of people need a lot of prayer for when they're dealing with.
Yeah, he was darn serious about what he does.
Yeah, and very sincere. Very, I'm kind of a, what do you call them? Discerners, communication discerners, and a very loving person. You can tell by people's voices most of the time if they're pretty loving. And anyway, what I wanted to talk to you about is the other night, I think it was your program, you talked about 16 kids in a car that were headed for trafficking and organ donations. Right. Yeah, and what I wanted to ask them is that, are those people demon possessed, or are they just evil?
I think they're just plain evil.
That's what I think, too. I think if you asked them, they would just think they were, they had a right to do that, like drug pushers, that they have no respect for other people.
None.
And so, you have a lot of interesting guests. And like I said, since I started listening, my IQ has gone up 47 points.
Perfect. We all get PhDs listening to this show, Stan.
Yeah, I know it. It's a real service to people, and I've done a lot of research on the brain. I try to help veterans. It's one,
well, good for you.
I'm a veteran, and
thank you.
I came close to death about 7 times. And because of it, see, most people do not understand PTSD. They really don't. The brain changes. Stress changes the brain. And that brain needs special attention and special education for the rest of its life. And we all need a lot of love. And I think if we would start loving people instead of judging them, we could see this world turn around a lot faster. But you keep doing your good deed. I enjoy your. I'm going to write a book because I stay up late and listen. I'm going to write a book called Not Tonight, George.
I love it. All right, thanks, Stanley. Appreciate it. Next up, Jim in Delaware. Take it away, Jimmy.
Hey, George. Good to hear Cornelius is still with us.
Yeah, he is. I got a little worried about that.
Remember he's saying he's going to be away for about a month.
He's back.
Anyway, remember when Dr. King was assassinated in 1968? They used to say that you're not born, no one's born a racist. It's taught. Racism is taught. What are they doing to these school kids? They're telling the white ones, you're naturally born an oppressor of the black people. And the black people are always going to be oppressed. It's like they want to keep racism alive.
Well, I think racism comes at people 2 ways. 1, from the family. 2, from outside influences that young kids pick up. And, I was born in Detroit. I had a lot of African-American friends, and it was just part of my life. And people are people. I don't understand how people are just so racist when it comes to stuff, including religions and stuff. These are topics we really don't handle on the program a lot, but, I mean, they're there, they're real, and you just got to start caring about people as people. Let's go next to Steve in Philadelphia. Stephen, take it away.
Hey, George. Great to talk to you. I am an airline pilot, and around 22:30 or 10:30 Eastern Time earlier tonight, there were a series of very strange-looking lights in the northwest sky, up quite high. And I was just calling to see maybe if any other pilots could call in. There's a frequency that we use basically for emergencies, but sometimes there's some random chatter that goes on over it. But seemed like a number of people were seeing the same lights. And I was just wondering if, any other pilots out there might have seen it. Those radio signals go pretty far at night, especially up at the altitude which we were at, which was 34,000. It was very interesting. It's the first time I've ever seen something weird.
Okay, we'll do that. The call has been made. Let's see what happens. Text and tweets. Tommy, what do you have?
This one we have from Jason in Connecticut. Do you think we will ever fly past Mars?
Well, what do you mean fly past Mars?
I don't know because he doesn't elaborate, but I'm assuming go to another planet besides Mars, like way, way out there.
With astronauts?
Yes.
Probably not.
That's what I'm assuming.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
I hope we get to Mars.
Wouldn't that be great? I just watched a movie called The Martian the other day.
That was with Matt Damon.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
It's a good movie. He was out there growing things on the soil and stuff like that.
Could you imagine flying and then just everybody has to leave?
Poof.
It's horrible.
Yep.
Great writers.
Would you go to Mars if they invited you to go?
No.
Too long a trip.
No, I just like living here, and I don't think...
Would you go to the moon for like a 2-week trip?
Yeah, I might do that.
With Dr. Sky?
As long as I can come back. Hey, you know what? We flew Sophia. That was pretty, I guess, the closest you'll get. But as long as I can come back.
Was that scary doing that?
No, it was so fun. It was so fun. I mean, it's just like flying in a normal airplane, except that it's all black and there's nothing out there. And so it's not scary. It's just kind of cool.
Did it give you the perception of anti-gravity?
No, it just really felt just like a normal airplane ride.
It did. Okay.
But you knew you were so much farther up there. All
right. Thanks, Thomas. East of the Rockies, Vaughn is with us in Beaumont, Texas. Hey, Vaughn.
Hello. How are you?
Okay.
That Sierra Sound thing been going on since 71, 72. I don't know how no one debunked it. I clearly have done that already on one of your channels on YouTube, decoding Sasquatch language.
Okay.
Under the Coast to Coast AM, I guess it's logo, where comments are. I have the minute and the second dictates on there. Minute and second dictates. I've transcribed it meticulously, and I promise you that is exactly what's being said. I can transcribe just about the whole Sierra Sound thing, and I was posted on Sierra Sounds by Ron Moorhead and Al Berry, part 1, 2, and 3, and they won't allow it to, to stay posted. At first, they were stacking about 50 comments over mine, pushing it down the list, and then they end up just stop letting it appear. But if you look under decoding Sasquatch language, that's your Coast to Coast deal on YouTube, and then under Coast to Coast AM official little logo, where you have a comment. One of mine is a reply,
How did you decode these, Vaughn?
That's very, very easy. I listened to it over and over again, and then, like I said one time before, I started listening with my heart instead of my head for inflections, intonations, pitches, and stuff. And then once you hear it, you wonder how everybody is missing it. It's so clear, and I'm telling you that I can tell you, what's being said on, it'll start off. Hey, I hate acting. And then the girl say, well, I don't know, don't act like me, whatever. And then he'll say, well, now I hear from Winnie the Pooh. And then she'll say, Ron. And then he say, I'm thinking. And then she say, what you thinking? Back off. And then they start making garble. And then he say, oh, where the hell you come from?
So you don't think it's the real deal?
You listen to it. It's on your station.
Yeah, no, I've heard it. It's bizarre though, to be sure. Next up, let's go to Marcy in San Diego. Hello, Marcy.
Hi. Before I speak about what I called about, the suicide subject came up, and I appreciate you keeping the show going because I mourned for Art Bell like he was a blood relative. And when he lost his Ramona, and she was only 46, he got so down. One night he talked about the unthinkable, and I was so thrilled when he met a girl that reminded him of Ramona, he said, and then they even able to start a baby. I was so thrilled. And the other thing was, the races really started coming together in the 1950s and 60s over rock and roll, and we even had a black president reelected, and I was so thrilled. And I am a Republican, but I was still so thrilled. And then a few bad apples in the police got all this backsliding and stirred up. It just hurt me so bad. What I called about was somebody was calling in and asking about Patricia Bragg. And for young people, I'm 80, that don't know, Jack LaLanne started the first gym. I don't believe there were any gyms in the United States.
In those days, that's right.
And Paul Bragg was Jack LaLanne was the kind of the protege of Paul Bragg.
Paul was Patricia's father.
Right. Well, I read a book by Paul Bragg. It was a book on health, but he said that he used to give these lectures in San Francisco about health. And Jack LaLanne lived on a farm outside of San Francisco, and he was just a boy. And his family would bring in the vegetables to San Francisco to sell. And they would get the money, and they would buy white bread and a lot of junk food. And he said, well, actually, it was in the Bible. You were giving up your birthright. So Jack LaLanne started attending the lectures by Paul Bragg on the health and about the life force, he called it, is in the fruit and vegetables. So Jack LaLanne started eating the fruit and vegetables and started exercising, and he had been a runt, underweight, always sick. And he got healthy and strong, and he made when he was older, he started the Jack LaLanne gyms all over the country. I'll never forget, this is a real belly laugh, when Jack LaLanne was really old, like 92 or 93, he's on TV doing all these push-ups. And
I remember seeing him.
His wife was standing there watching him, and the interviewer says, wow, I am impressed. Could I ask, how's the love life? Jack says, why, nearly every day. She says, yeah, nearly on Monday, nearly on Tuesday, nearly on Wednesday. I got a big bang out of that. So anyway, it's so nice now that they have all these fruit and vegetable powders, and you do not have to buy anything expensive like what they're advertising on TV, these fruit and vegetables in the pill. You can buy different brands of that, and you can buy it so cheap in the powder. I've been buying these big old tubs. Let's see here, about 10 ounces. They're pretty, almost the size of a regular coffee can, for around $10.
Not bad.
And
How old are you now, Marcy?
I am 80 years old.
Good for you.
And I live across the street from a gym that I haven't been going since COVID. But I was running on the indoor track, and at first I was only able to run around there 2 times, and it's like a third of a mile or something like that. So one time this big guy was down there, happened to be standing on the track. This guy had even been in the Olympics. I mean, this guy is what they call it, the triathlons, the Ironman contest. And he came over here from Holland. He says, why are you only able to run 2 times, lady, around? I said, I'm nearly going to have a heart attack. He says, well, now let me tell you how to do that. He says, now, don't go so fast. You jog. You don't have to run. And then next time you come, you go 3 times around, and you do that for a while, and then you start going 4 times. And you're going to build up, and you're going to train, and don't strain. And you're going to be going many times around there. So that's what I did, and I did end up going, I was running like 3 miles twice a week, and runs in my family to have high blood pressure no matter what you do. If you're in this family, and my blood pressure, even though I was doing all this exercise and I knocked off all my excess weight, doing everything right, my heart would start racing and pounding while I was all relaxed watching TV, and it scared the heck out of me. So I finally got on the high blood pressure pills. But, I believe if I hadn't built up my heart like I had, I do believe it would have killed me.
Well, you stay healthy. You stay healthy, my dear. Let's take another call before the break. Eric in Indiana. Hello there, stranger.
George, this is Eric, the mind control guy. How's everything?
How's the mind control guy?
Oh, we're doing fine. Just trucking up and down the highways of the Midwest, delivering food.
Keeping America going.
Absolutely. Anyway, I want to talk about ghost pets. I know you have guests around October that deal with such topics, but we recently lost one of our cats. And interesting where he ended up passing on underneath our deck on top of the old stone steps. And 11 days later, we finally found him.
Oh, geez.
And we didn't know how he disappeared. I let him out for his nightly stroll around the yard, and he never showed back up. And then when I found him, apparently he had got hit by a car, but it didn't kill him, and he knew he wasn't going to make it. So he drug himself back, went underneath the deck, crawled up there, and he passed on right underneath the threshold where we step outside. I think he wanted to die at home, but he didn't want us to see him in his condition. But a few days after I buried him, he had a distinct sound. Some cats meow, some cats howl. I call it a meow. And I was in the house by myself at night, and all of a sudden I heard his voice.
After he had passed?
About 2-3 days after he had passed, right at the threshold. And our other cat come running up from downstairs, and he was looking around. He heard it, too. And I'm thinking, the guests that deal with such topics, hopefully there'll be one on here in October that deal with ghost pets, that they let you know that they're still around, that they never wanted to leave home.
I think we have one next week. We're going to come back and wrap things up with Barbara Lamb on UFOs next. Well, they say your past life affects who you are today. Past life regressionist Barbara Lamb tells all. Barbara, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, George. I'm delighted to be here.
And how are you these days?
I'm fine. Really busy these days.
How did you get involved in hypnotherapy? How did that first start for you?
Well, first of all, I became licensed as a psychotherapist back in 1976 way back there. And then in 1984, I began to have a few years of training to be a past life regression therapist. And that eventually morphed into people coming for regressions who had had extraterrestrial encounters. And of course, when they first started coming in 1991, some of them knew that they were having strange visitors at night, and sometimes they were having missing time, or sometimes they would have unusual markings on their bodies or little lumps under their skin, which turned out to be implants. And so they didn't really know what was going on, but they knew something very peculiar was happening to them now and then. So anyway, we did regressions to some of those experiences, and it turned out that they were extraterrestrial encounters. So that's how I happened to get into that. And my goodness, George, since 1991, I have had the great privilege, I consider it, of regressing well over 2,000 individuals to these extraterrestrial experiences.
And Barbara, when you were doing this and you were getting these kinds of accounts, did you think, this is weird, this is strange?
Well, I did, yes, because like most of us, I didn't grow up with that kind of knowledge at all. And I had thought that UFOs and extraterrestrials were simply fiction. That's what I thought. So when people started coming to me with these particular happenings and wonderings, I really wasn't thinking in terms of extraterrestrials, but the more the regressions went on and the more detailed the experiences were that were coming out in regression, I finally had to believe that, whoa, a lot of people are getting visited by these beings and having a variety of experiences.
At what point did you start getting involved with the children?
Well, even back in that first year, in 1991, I was working with about 3 different adults about their extraterrestrial experiences, and they were talking about their children having reports. The children would give reports of, unusual visitors in the room at night, or being flown out the window and up into the air and into someplace else. And so the adults began to think, wow, I'm not only having these experiences, but my child is having them. So fortunately for them and for me, some of these mothers were bringing their children in to my office just to have a chat about these things. And what they were describing about the beings and about what was happening to them certainly sounded like what was happening to the adults, and that they were indeed having experiences with what we call extraterrestrial beings. But I'd like to mention some of the ways that children talked about them. It's kind of cute in some ways. In other words, some children would report that fairies were in their room last night. Or some kids called them monsters. Oh, those little monsters came again. Or kids said, oh, yeah, those little sparkles of light came in the room through the window and they swirled around and made all these pretty patterns. And some kids even said, a big ball of light, white light, came into the room and woke me up, and it was sort of flying around, and then it stopped, and then out of this big ball of light came a little guy, a little being, like a little gray being, or sometimes even 3 little beings. Of course, they didn't know to call them aliens.
Right. They didn't know what they were.
Extraterrestrials, no, but they just would see this thing happen. And some people called them little people. So they'd report the next day to Mom and Dad, "Oh, the little people came." Or I know one child kept talking about the funny little people. And one lady saw all these little sparkles flying around in the room when these occasions would happen, and she called them the fireflies because that's what it reminded her of. And then I had somebody at one point, one child, called them the gargoyle people because he'd seen statues on Notre Dame and different cathedrals like that. And so these E.T. visitors reminded him of the gargoyles. Another lady saw little lights very frequently around the ceiling, the edge of the wall where it met the ceiling all the way around, and she called them the little woodgies.
The little woodgies?
Yeah. So in other words, kids don't know what to call them, so they sort of make up their own name. And another little boy said, "Oh, yeah, that little old man came again last night, the one with the wrinkly face." And then many children have reported that somebody, a being or two or three, have come out of the closet or in through the window. But I've really been amazed at how many people report these beings coming out of the closet.
That sounds like a portal to me, Barbara.
It does sound like a portal. And, of course, the children don't know that concept about a portal. But they certainly do frequently describe that. And some people call them their space friends.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these, kids are quite scared, even terrified, as they see these beings come in, particularly the ones that they consider are monsters. But then there are plenty of other kids who consider these beings as their friends, as playmates, as companions.
Have any of these children been taken and then brought back?
Oh, yes, that's all part of the experience. And typically, just as it is with adults or any age, the child will remember waking up and the beings in the room, and very often not being able to move or call out. And they might be aware enough to have realization of being levitated up off the bed and floated across the room, floated through the room or through the wall with these beings. And sometimes they'll remember even kind of like being floated up in a beam of light into something.
It's got to be petrifying for the kid.
Well,
it's scary for an adult.
Yes, indeed. It can be scary for any age. However, what I have found with adults and with children, the more we talk about all this, and then when we do regressions too, of course, that they realize that, what seemed to be terrible and scary and frightening very often turns out to be an okay experience once they really realize what the details were, and that in some cases they were even helped in various ways by these beings.
These beings sense the kid is scared or something, I bet.
Oh, they must, yes. And I think that is why they try to do this clandestinely, because they know that they can really scare humans.
What do you think they want, though, Barbara? I mean, why deal with little kids? What's happening?
Well, you see, George, there are so many different kinds of extraterrestrial beings, different species from all over the place.
True.
And so they each have their own agenda. So it depends on which group of ETs we're talking about. Some of them are more scientifically oriented, and they want to study. They want to study us. They want to study children, teenagers, young adults, older adults, and understand how our physiology works.
Maybe they seeded us and they're checking back. Possible?
Real real good possibility. What a good idea you have. Yeah, many of us do have that theory that is quite likely. We don't know for sure, but quite likely. So some of the beings, as I say, like to really understand how our bodies work. And that even begins with understanding a child's body. Some of them are more interested in how they can help a human's body, whether that's a child or an older person, and they do a lot of healing of different conditions that we humans have. And sometimes if they don't go ahead and heal something that they can see is wrong, they will warn the person that they have a liver problem or whatever the problem is that they're seeing, and they'll suggest to the person that when the person gets home again, the person will go to his own doctor for a checkup and say that he suspects that maybe he has that particular problem, which the ETs have detected, and that the doctor will go ahead and treat that condition. But so many times, even children and any age of person will be actually healed of whatever the condition is, healed right there on the spaceship, or even in some cases, the person is healed right there at home in their own bed. In other words, the whole encounter just stays right there in the person's home. And it's frequently done, that is, the healing is done with some kind of application of light. Sometimes...
Yeah, or green goo, as you have.
Yeah, green goo, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the notable things about children, that sometimes children have found that they've been taken on board and put in a tub, like a bathtub type of arrangement, and instead of water in that tub, it's filled with what they describe as green goo, because it's sort of a little bit it's runny but thick, a little bit viscous. Of course, they don't use that word, and that they just sort of soak their bodies like soaking in a bathtub, and that there's something about that green substance that gets absorbed through the child's skin and heals the child of whatever the difficulty is. And then on other occasions, sometimes the child is sick to some extent when taken aboard the spacecraft, and the child is given a glass of green liquid to drink. And that is a very healing process as well. So we humans don't know what makes up that green substance, but I wish we had it, because it seems to be a wonderful healer.
These are just amazing stories in this real small book for kids. This is this primarily for kids or adults? Because I find it kind of interesting myself.
Good for you. Yes, well, we wrote the book for kids primarily, but with the idea that in many cases a parent or grandparent or babysitter might be reading that book or just looking at it, with the child, maybe reading the captions, whether the child can read or not. Kids love to be read to. And the idea is that this can validate for children if they have had these encounters. And one reason why that's important is because so many children tell their parents that their little woodgies or their little space friends or whatever have been there again last night. And the parents very often don't believe the child.
They don't see this experience, do they?
No, they don't see it. They are in their own rooms just totally sound asleep.
For Dan Galante, Tom Danheiser, Lisa Lyon, Lex Lonehood, Sean Ladouceur, Stephanie Smith, Chris Burrows, Tim Banal, George Knapp and Ian Punnett. I'm George Norrie, somewhere out there on Coast to Coast AM. We'll see you on our next edition. Until then, be safe, everyone.